change things up and start things off in a social way. So turn to the person next to you and give them a compliment. Excellent. Did anyone sit next to a dud? Maybe you received a backhanded compliment. Oh my God, that shirt is so slimming. Well, now's your chance to get up and move awkwardly and publicly next to someone better. Any takers? No, we're all good. Okay, now turn to the person next to you and give yourself a compliment. Excellent. Hands up in the room. Who here found giving themselves a compliment much harder? Yeah, most of us, right? Because except for the egomaniacs who are still giving themselves compliments as we speak. But here's the thing, most of our lives, we've been giving other people compliments. And the minute I change the thing you meant to do and ask you to do something different, you find it incredibly difficult. And that's one of the challenges of change. And today, change is a given. And if your strategy for coping with change is to hold on tight, grit your teeth, and hope you make it through to the other side relatively unscathed, I've got terrible news for you. There is no other side in sight. So we need to change our thinking about change. Because we're living in a time of unprecedented change, aren't we? Driven largely by technological innovation. Facebook this year hit 2.2 billion users, which would make them the biggest country on earth by population if they were, in fact, a country. And Facebook may have changed the way we connect, but every time Facebook changes something, whether it be their navigation or their layout or their privacy settings, people lose their mind, they go nuts. And if Facebook ever goes down, it's an emergency. Not figuratively, literally an emergency. Like Facebook went down for about an hour last year in the US and people called 911. Hello, what's your emergency? I can't upload a photo of my smashed Avo. How are people gonna know I have high disposable income? And if you think about it, that's an extraordinary shift that we've seen. And it's hardly surprising that we're hopelessly digitally dependent. In fact, in China and the US, they're opening up digital detox centres. Hi, my name's Kieran, and I'm a Wi-Fi addict. It's been 3 minutes since I last checked my Insta. You can follow me at ThinkKieranF. We're even seeing this digital dependency in humanitarian crises. When Syrian refugees flooded into Greece in 2016, aid workers tell us that the first thing they asked them was, is there Wi-Fi and can I charge my phone? They asked for Wi-Fi before water. That is an extraordinary amount of change. The problem is, human beings, we don't like change. I mean, we say we like change. We say things, we have kind of motivational statements around change, like change is as good as a holiday, but we don't really mean it. I mean, just try swapping out some of your staff's holiday time for a bit of change and see how well that goes down. Yeah, and if anybody ever utters the words, you've changed, to you, it's never a compliment. Because here's the thing, we fight change. We want things to stay the same. We don't want things to drop. Keep everything in its place. And no wonder that the anti-change industry, well, the anti-aging industry, according to Orbis research, was worth $250 billion in 2016, and it's in massive growth. $250 billion spent fighting aging. L'Oreal's right. I am worth it. I'm just not sure I'm 250 billion worth it. And compounding this is actually the fact that not only do we fight change, but that we bias towards the familiar. We like things that are familiar to us. It's comfy, it's safe in there, and we want to stay there. In many studies done around this, we see the result time and time again. In one of my favourites, because it involves chocolate, participants were given the same chocolate in different groups, and they were either told that the chocolate was 73 years old recipe or a 3-year-old recipe. Guess which chocolate the group preferred? I mean, who would have thought that decades-old chocolate was more delicious, or that it would last longer than 3 minutes? Not in my fridge. It's really interesting. And then we also, human beings, suffer from something called loss aversion, which basically means that the pain of loss is twice as great as the pleasure of gains. It means we operate out of the fear of losing things more than the pleasure and the possibility of gaining stuff. It's actually how we make decisions. You can see this in multiple studies done in car parks of all places. In the American Journal of Psychology did multiple experiments in car parks across the United States. And they found every single time that a human being reversing out of a car spot takes longer to leave the car spot if there's another person waiting for it. It is not your imagination. It turns out we don't even like losing things we don't want. We're basically just a bunch of sore losers. So we need to change our thinking about change because we have to fight all these defaults and biases. And for me, I think change actually exists in 3 spheres. And now the first sphere is actually the sphere of what's changing. It's the favourite one. It's the one that gets all the love and attention. It's the Marsha Brady of the Brady Bunch. It's the Chris Hemsworth. It's the Beyonce of Destiny's Child. The second sphere is the sphere of what needs changing. And it gets a little bit of attention. Like it's a Cindy Brady. It's the Liam Hemsworth. I mean, you'd take Liam if Chris wasn't around. And it's a Kelly Rowland. And then the third sphere of change is actually what's unchanging. And it basically gets no love and attention whatsoever. I mean, it's the Jan, it's the Luke Hemsworth, it's the other one. It gets no love and attention. And if we want to actually successfully navigate change in our businesses and organisations, we actually need to start seeing things from these 3 spheres. But today I just want to talk about one sphere of change. I want to talk about what needs changing, the Liam, if you like. And I want to have a chat about that. And in particular, the need for creativity in our businesses and workplaces. The need to see creativity as a commercial tool, not as something nice to have, because I think it's really important. And it's something I know quite a lot about. For most of my career, I was an advertising madman. But I wasn't her, I was him. I was a bit Mark McCrindle, apparently. Yeah, I was one of only 3% of female leaders in the advertising industry on the entire planet. I even have a boy's name, Kieran. I mean, clearly, Mum and Dad had other plans. But I think it all turned out okay because a large part of my job actually was understanding creativity as a commercial tool. And I also ran Australia's Creative School, and I taught people from all kinds of industries and all sorts of backgrounds how to be more creative. And whenever I tell anybody that I'm creative, the majority of them say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky. I can't draw a stick figure to save my life." Now, I am not sure at what point in history drawing a stick figure ever saved anybody's life. But I do know this. We've become quite confused about what creativity actually is. Because creativity isn't artistry. It's not an ability to draw. It's an ability to think. It's an ability we all desperately need today in our businesses to cope with this huge volume of change that's coming our way. You know, and sometimes we need to pick other words for creativity because some people are a little uncomfortable about it. They think it's all textures and crayons, but it's actually not. It's ingenuity, it's resilience, it's problem solving, it's responsiveness, inventiveness, agility, flexibility. And they're all skills we can actually learn. Because the other great myth of creativity is it's something you're born with, that you're either creative or you're not, that you're an artist or an accountant. that we draw a line that doesn't actually exist, because every one of you is far more creative than you think. And you can get better at creativity. It's actually a skill you can learn. Question for you. Do we have any Family Feud fans in the room who were devastated by the news that our Gold Logie winner had actually had his show cancelled? Anyone? Yeah. I hate Family Feud. Oh, I reckon I was so happy that day. I had a party. I think it was the worst show on telly. Yeah, I know, right? I am hardcore. Why? Because they reward common thinking. I mean, they reward conformity. It's like Catholic school on telly. You get prizes for thinking the same as everybody else. And they ask you questions like, name something with a hole in it, and you all say, donut! And here's the kicker. You think you're smart. Like, you get a sense of achievement and accomplishment. Yeah, I'm so smart. I'm so good at this game. I'm so good at thinking the same as everybody else. And every day in my household, my daughter Darcy and my husband Gary watch Family Feud, and I watch creativity die. Because something happens to our brains, and I call it the obvious barrier. Now, the obvious barrier is because our brains are heuristic machines, which is a fancy way of just saying our brains are pattern-making machines. It's the reason why you can get up in the morning, who's had this experience, wash your hair, or if you've got no hair, wash your head, brush your teeth, have coffee, get in the car or the train or however you Uber or however you get to work, sit down at your desk and go, how did I get here? Like, you don't remember whatsoever how you got there. Who's had that experience? Yeah, most of us, right? It's your heuristic brain at work, and it's a marvelous tool for survival. It's a marvelous pattern repeating tool because you don't even need to think. But it's terrible when it comes to problem solving and creativity, because you stop at donut. And you go, I'm so not creative, I can just only think of donut. That's a problem. And the greatest trick to creativity, the greatest tip I can give you if you just want one, is to do the work. Most of you stop at obvious and you don't go beyond obvious, and it's actually the trick to any great creative person. There's a lot of brain sweat that goes into good ideas. Disney, I think, is a wonderful example of the power of going beyond the obvious barrier, not just in the work they put out, but in the way they think about their customer and target market. Because Disney make movies for dual audiences. I mean, they tell stories with something in it for kids, obviously, but more importantly, with something in it for adults. Because they know who's buying the DVDs and having to watch them over and over and over and over. Who's got little kids? What is that? Over and over again. They can watch the same movie 1,000 times. It's very weird. Who's seen Toy Story? Pretty much everyone, right? Now, Toy Story is a great example of this dual audience set. And in it, there's a scene where Bo Peep walks up to the lead character, Woody, and in a sexy, breathy, Marilyn Monroe-esque voice, she says, well, what do you say we get someone else to watch the sheep tonight? So clearly Woody is about to earn his name. The other thing people don't realise about creativity is it's actually collaborative. It's not a lone artist who hates the world, locked away by themselves, because remember, it's not artistry. It's actually more collaborative than we think. But who heard me say the word collaborative and hears the word collaboration and vomits in their mouth a bit? All right? Ugh. Yeah, because I think the corporate world's actually hijacked collaboration. It's a buzzword, and we use it often to mean we get along with each other and play nicely with each other, and we're not rude to each other. And I have a problem with that. I mean, we say things to our teams and staff like, we need to tolerate each other. We need to tolerate each other. I mean, do an experiment with me, actually. Turn to the person next to you and use your heart voice. Now, you all have a heart voice. It's a special voice that you say for the people you hold nearest and dearest. I love you. I love you. I love you. So use your heart voice, turn to the person next to you and say, I tolerate you so much. Go on. Hands up in the room who just felt like they received an amazing compliment. Only the kids who weren't hugged. Because here's the thing, tolerance is a terrible idea. Tolerance is a stupid notion. Tolerance means I don't like you, I don't respect you, I don't think you bring anything to the table, but I put up with you if I don't, HR are going to send me on a course. That's what tolerance means. And we need to move beyond tolerance when it comes to collaboration. We need to understand that we should collaborate not to be nice, but to be great. Because collaboration makes us smarter. And it's not just me who thinks this. MIT did a study. They took a homogenous group of only men, not hard to find, and they added a single woman to it. What do you think happened? The collective IQ of the group went up. Imagine. And they added another woman to the group. What do you think happened? It went up again. I mean, who would have thought? In fact, it kept going up. The group kept getting smarter and better at solving problems and coming up with ideas until the homogeny balance tipped back the other way and the diversity disappeared. Now, it wasn't that the women made the group smarter, although we totally do. It was the fact the diversity of thinking, the different ways of seeing the world, the cognitive diversity made the group smarter and more creative. Now, if you're not really a people person, you can also collaborate outside your industry. Most of us get so stuck in our own industry that we forget to look beyond it. Who's seen use by dates on tontine pillows? Yeah, right? Great example of collaborating outside your industry. Not a lot of innovation and news going on in pillows. You know, they're fluffy, you sleep on them. But Tontine come along and they take an idea that's been in the food industry for decades and they put use by dates on pillows. I mean, up till then, we were all thinking, just how yellow does it have to be before you turn it over? Change it over. And if I'm coming for a sleepover at your place, I'm totally checking the use by date on my pillow. The creativity also changes things while accepting people. And I think this is really important. I'm going to introduce you to my husband, Gary, and my daughter, Darcy. And I love them very much. I think they're amazing, but they're incredibly messy. And we live in a 4-storey terrace house in inner Sydney, not too far down the road. And we park our cars in the basement, and then you go up a flight of stairs to our living areas, and then our bedrooms on the 2 upper floors. So you can imagine, at the end of a long day of school and work, that we come home, park the car, carry all our stuff upstairs, and the last thing anyone wants to do is to go up another couple of flights of stairs to put their stuff away. Consequently, it looks like we've been robbed. So embarrassing. We can't have people over because, you know, illusion of success and all that. So consequently, we're very antisocial. So I think I need to fix this. And I think I'm going to motivate us to do better. We can do better. So I buy a reward chart. Who's bought a reward chart before? Yeah, right? So here's the game. We go gold star. Every day we take our stuff upstairs. And if we get all gold stars, at the end of the week, we will go and get cow and moon gelato from Enmore. Highly recommend it. Day 1, gold star. Day 2, gold star. Day 3, we can't find the gold stars. They're buried under the mess. So then I try stick method. I think I'm going to yell at them. I yell at them. My husband cries. Doesn't work out very well. And then I remember what I teach. I was a bit of a slow learner. That creativity changes things and not people. So I decide to design with the human beings in mind. And I have cupboards built at the bottom of the stairs. So much easier, right? I mean, don't open them. Open them at your own peril. but so much easier, and we can have people come over again. Because that's the power of creativity. It works with human beings at its best. It doesn't try to change them. It makes the most of who they are. Even on simple things like language, making our language more personal. You know, I was recently doing some work for the United Nations in Singapore, helping them to develop strategies to fight human trafficking in the region. And one of the most important things that I did was to suggest that they change the language they use to talk about the issue to make it more human. Think about it. Human trafficking sounds far less confronting than slavery, doesn't it? Yeah, right? It's softer, it's less personal, it doesn't hurt you as much. And Singapore's sex industry, it kind of sounds legitimate, right? It sounds like something that would be good for the economy. You almost expect them to have an ABN. It certainly sounds less criminal than when we call it organised kidnapping and rape, which is what it actually is. So we changed the language they used to talk about the issue to make it more human, to make it more personal, to make it more powerful. But we do the same thing in business every single day. We use less human language and shut down creativity. I mean, we call our staff capital, which literally means head of cattle, moo. Or resource, like human beings are something you dig up in Western Australia and sell to China. And then we spew forth copious amounts of jargon. It comes from our mouths in a hope to sound intelligent, and we just sound confusing. It sounds like the kind of stuff that should be delivered by a smiling air hostess from the 1950s. We need to optimize our collateral to facilitate the corporate journey and streamline our onboarding process so all employees can live the corporate values, walk the corporate path, and embody the company ethos. That way we'll have the bandwidth to leverage our supplier pipeline, create enough synergy so that going forward we can ideate some blue sky thinking and incentivize our brand evangelists with a holistic approach and a bespoke solution. Or by COP, that's close of play, because remember, we're all having such fun, aren't we? Huh? And then the corporate world act all surprised that we have a loyalty and connection problem. And then we spend all our time and effort trying to toughen people up. We call it resilience. We need to make our people more resilient. But I have a problem with resilience as making people tougher. I think resilience is actually a creative skill. Think about it. It's mental flexibility, not mental toughness. It's not, stay out in the blistering heat. It's actually, no, bend and change and adapt and do things differently. Because let's face it, if we tell people to be mentally tough, if we say, suck it up, precious, there's only so long we can say that to our staff before they start updating their LinkedIn profiles. Whereas flexibility, resilience as a flexibility skill, as a creative skill, is extremely powerful. I call it the 6 R's of resilience. It's the ability to reframe, to regroup, to rethink, to rework, to reward, and to reinforce the behaviours that we want. But I just want to end by talking about reframing, because it's actually what creativity and change is all about. It's about the ability to see possibility when all possibility seems lost. It's about the ability to change things for the better in our organisations. Because if we can change our thinking, we can actually change everything. Thank you.